everyone. Welcome to another fabulous session of Pen Connect, which is Penmancy's unique venture where we try to bring in authors closer to their readers. Today, we have with us author Nithya Sashi, and we will be talking about her new book, The Kamin's Daughter, and all the related aspects of her book and how she wrote it. But before we dive into your book, Nithya, let me give a brief introduction of you to our viewers. Nithya is a learning and development professional, an author, and a blogger. Her latest book, The Kamin's Daughter, the book that we will be talking about today, deals with the aftermath of abuse in childhood and Naxalism. So, yes, very, very, heavy handed topics that we are going to discuss today. And she lives in Chennai and she has written two romance titles and one short story collection. Welcome to Penmancy, Nithya. I am so happy to have you here.
Thank you, Monica. Likewise, I'm really excited to be on your show. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you. And I can see that people are joining in. Lalita is here, Deepa is here. Lalita has also recently read your book, and we have talked about your book amongst each other, and we have talked about the different aspects of her book. Lalita has written a fabulous review also of your book. I don't know whether you've seen it or not, but yes, she loved it. Yeah.
Yes, I have read it. I am so grateful, Lalita, for loving my book. Thank you,
Right.
Lalita.
All right. So, Nitya, it is a very, very intriguing topic. Like we were talking about just before the session, that I have never really read a book which talks about these kind of topics. Childhood abuse coupled with Naxalism, coupled with the coal mining industry in Bihar, and all the related aspects of that. So it was a very refreshing read for me because I was reading all of these for the first time in a fictional narrative, and it was super amazing for me. So I want to ask you, like, the first question for you from me is, how did you get inspired to write about this subject? Tell me about that.
Sure. So, as I told you, I grew up in West Bengal and Dhanbad, and so the basically the coal mining areas are so you will see a lot of Naxalism and people working in the mines. They're people who are in the poorer sections of the society, so they're often marginalized and oppressed by the managers and other people who are in the power situations. So what happens is these laborers, they are not given their dues, and they are usually manual laborers, and they get money daily. They do not
Right.
have any coverage, nothing. So
Right.
I grew up watching all these people around me, and they would work under my father. So of course, after the government took over all these coal mines, things did change, but not to an extent where you would consider them to be. It is not actually a great career. So they are still
Right.
laborers, and they do not have that kind of safety. So, to the women laborers, it is actually a double kind of a blow, because they get a lot of abuse from their peers, or the managers, the superiors. So they do not have any say in anything, and that is very shocking. And they also make a living by working as house helps. So when you listen to their stories, these women come across as people who are so gullible and so naive that you will think, oh, how do they even exist in this kind of a world where they have no exposure about anything? They do not know anything. They do not
Right.
know about rights is like really far-fetched, but they do not even know that they can raise their voice against the oppression and the abuse. They think it is natural for other people to abuse them. So that kind of a thing was so shocking for somebody like us, who had we live in cities and we are educated. So that was very shocking, and that really stayed on in my mind when we migrated to Chennai. So I was actually planning to write a non-fiction book, more like a documentary, as we were talking about.
Right,
So,
right.
and then I wanted to just twist it, and I instead wrote a fictional book, giving fictional characters. So that's how it
Right.
came about.
No, no, I understand. I think there is a element of controversy and conspiracy also to these subjects, and writing a non-fiction would kind of generate that unnecessary kind of attention and
Yes.
everything. So I guess a fictional narrative suits this kind of story much better than a non-fiction narrative would suit. So I'm really glad that you kind of spoke about this, and the way that you were talking about it, I got this impression that you have really talked to some of these people who worked in the mines. Have you talked to them? Is that part of your research?
Yes. So I spoke to several people who were who used to work in the mines, and who were who would come to our house, and they would work as domestic helpers, or as malis or gardeners or maids,
Right.
and also they would work in the mines. So along with those people, I also spoke to several managers, so people who were in the managerial cadre, so who would actually be governing or supervising these people. So I wanted to get an overall picture about what both sides of the story. So apart from that, I also spoke to a few psychiatrists, psychologists, to get a real picture of how abuse affects people. So if you are
Right.
undergoing some kind of abuse, what happens in your mind? What kind of scars does it leave? So that kind of research actually was very stressful, as well as it doesn't leave you with a very nice feeling. Also, you also
Mm,
get
true.
to live with it. It's as if it is happening to you. So that kind of thing, I took some time to shake it off.
Right. Right. I can understand totally. I mean, it could not have been easy because all of these topics, like I said, like child abuse and Naxalism, and all the abuse that happens in the gold mining industry, it has to be very, very difficult to kind of witness and to know, the kind of abuse that happens to the people who are actually in these parts and are suffering. So I'm sure it must have been very, very difficult to kind of absorb all of that and then put it into a story format.
Yes.
Lalita has asked the same question, like, have you spoken or interviewed anyone from the mines for your book as a part of your research, Lalita? Yes. You have also spoken to psychiatrists about the impact of abuse, right?
Yes, yes, I did.
God, that could not have been easy.
No, not at all. Actually, I used to go for therapy for some personal problem, and so I asked my therapist for references who I could speak to in confidence, and because these are things that normally people don't want to talk about. I don't see
Right.
any of it being spoken about in the public forums, or even if you have undergone some kind of abuse, you don't talk about it. You just brush it under the carpet, and you just think, and I have not undergone anything. I have not faced anything. So that kind of thing doesn't work. If you have a wound on your body, so it is a similar thing that has happened to your mind, right? So you have to
Right.
heal it, you have to work on it. So that takes a lot of time. You have to give it love and time to heal, let it heal.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So we'll come to that a little later when we talk about the characters. But before that, tell me a little bit about the title of your book, The Kamin's Daughter. You have spoken about the title in the story, within the narrative, but tell our viewers what Kamin means, because I'm sure for all of us it's a very unfamiliar word, and where it comes from. Tell us about that.
Sure. So, a Kamin is a female worker who works in a coal mine or in any of the domestic scenarios. So, it is a very common word used in the East. So, if you're from West Bengal or Odisha, this word is you will be familiar with this word. It's like buy used in
Right.
Bombay.
Okay. Yes, yes,
Yes.
yes. Ha
So
ha
it's
ha.
like that. So Kamin is a very commonly used word, but in this context, it means a female coal mine worker. So the Kamin's
Right.
daughter is the protagonist. As you read the story, you come to know that the mother and daughter, they reconcile,
Right.
meet after
Right.
many years.
Yeah, absolutely. So without giving any spoilers to anybody out there, you need to read the book to understand who the Carmen's daughter is, and what is the kind of dynamics that is happening between the mother and the daughter. So yes. Oh yes, Lalita is asking the same question because it's very interesting that you spoke to psychologists and everything. It mustn't have been easy to write about darkness. As a writer, how are you able to structure this?
It
Do you
takes a while to even so it takes a while to absorb, consume the matter, and then think about how to structure it well. So to my knowledge, I just sat with the content, and I had to take a lot of help to chop it down. I had too much content on my hand to build a credible story, to give it a narrative that will flow end to end. So the structuring took a lot of time. So that is one reason why the book came out quite late. When I wrote it, and the first manuscript and the final output, there is a gap between these two.
Oh, really? How much was that time for
7
you
years.
completing? Sorry.
6 years, 6 to 7 years it took.
Oh, okay. That is a long time. Yeah. That is a long time. Yes. So the manuscript must have gone through a lot of revisions and a lot of editing during this period, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So
So
how did
I
you
worked with
decide? Please go ahead. Go
So
ahead.
I
Yeah.
worked with one of my friends, Divya Balaji, and we went over the manuscript like so many times, 1,000 plus times. And we would just argue and argue about how this point is not fitting, how that section is not fitting in. But then in the end, it all just panned out.
Right, right. So in these kind of, narratives, like you said, you had a lot of content to work with. How did you decide, what stays inside the book and what has to go out? Like how was that editing process? Like I'm sure you must have felt, no, I want to keep this, and then probably your editor or your publisher would have said that no, we need to remove this. How did that work out?
So actually, it uh, it was Divya's. So Divya was the person who said she had a say because she was the third eye, who was not very close to the content. So she was looking at it
Right,
very practically with a rational mind, and she was not very emotional about it. She said, "No, this
right.
doesn't work. This doesn't flow. You don't need it. It is good to know. Just leave it. Just ignore it." So that kind of chopping off, so that was Divya's doing. I'm really thankful for her. Otherwise, the book would have been like really long.
Right, right. Definitely. We always need a third person's perspective, when it comes to these subjects. All right. So let's talk a little bit about your two primary characters, Koina and Shom. For the viewers out there who have not read the book, Koina and Shom are the primary protagonists. Both of them are, I feel, and they have been married for a number of years. They have a teenage son. Koina is a media personality. She is a journalist, and Shom is a restaurateur. He owns a cafe, and he does a lot of business on the side. So, Nithya, let's talk about their relationship a little. Koina is very headstrong, being a journalist, she is used to getting out the story and seeking the truth. So, one thing that, that kind of made me pause is why she wasn't after Shom's story. Like, Shom told her like half a truth and, revealed something about himself, and then why is she not after him to know the complete truth? Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. So it is one of the flaws in her character. It is
Right.
something that uh, it is something that has stopped her from doing many things in her life. Like she could have taken many steps in her younger days where she should have put a stop to so many things, but she doesn't. So it is a flaw, and she doesn't know how to overcome it. So she
Right.
is actually emotionally dependent on Shom, and she doesn't want to, just mar the relationship. And that equation is such that it is like a crutch. She uses him as a crutch, but the thing is, she is like 80% strong and 20% vulnerable, and
Right.
that kind of a thing is so. I have portrayed Koena as a person who's, who can be your next door neighbor, all with shades of gray, some pluses, some minuses. And all of us are not actually always strong, right? So there are
Obviously.
moments when we become weak, or our minds don't work, we take really wrong decisions. And after, some moments of fuzziness, we go back to this clear thinking place, and we think, oh, what was I even thinking? So
Right.
Koina is also like that, but due to her background and due to whatever she has gone through, it really has hurt her thinking process. So there are moments where she cannot think straight. So she tends to take really harsh decisions, and and she regrets it later. But then that is
Right.
how she is. So at her workplace, she is very strong and she is very clear. But when it comes to her personal relationships, she is not like that. Somewhere she probably sheds her layers of being strong or opinionated and being clear, and she becomes really that vulnerable girl or a woman who met Shoma and she was in love, and just swayed in the emotions. So that is how she is. That flaw doesn't let her question him or needle him about whatever truths he is withholding.
Right, right, right. I think this has come across very well in Koina's character. This dichotomy that you're saying, that at the workplace she is very strong, she is very driven. She doesn't really consider anybody else's point of view if she knows that she's right. But at home, the same person is, has a different kind of personality because she's so dependent on Shom for emotional, for her emotional needs and everything. So yes, I totally agree with you. Nobody can be strong 100% of the times, and we do, depend on other people for emotional support and psychological support. That is true. That is true. All right. Lalita has a question. Koina is also a tough media woman. So, how does this Koina match with the wife who is emotionally fragile? Right. So that's what we talked about, Lalita, right now. Nithya has also shed a light on how she is that strong media woman, but at the same time, she is also that emotionally fragile girl. And I think, Nithya, this is how you have focused on the impact of abuse that one faces in childhood, and the long
Yes.
lasting impact of abuse that you come across even when you're adult. I think that lends to this vulnerable side of Koina, right?
Yes. And these are her demons, that don't let her rest. So, and this is why she needs help and she takes help from people, as you would
Right,
have read in the book. Yeah.
right, right, right. Yes, yes.
So I also wanted to throw a positive light on taking help and asking for help if you need it. So
Right.
that is where all that comes in.
Right, no, definitely. I picked up on all of those elements. But the only thing, like I would say, like an honest feedback, I felt that, the relationship between Koina and Shom, like we were discussing earlier, is kind of, how would I say, it's not
Toxic.
very, yeah, yeah, toxic.
Yeah,
Yes,
it is
yes.
very toxic.
So tell us if that is
Yes, it is very
intentional.
toxic. Yes. So the whole idea is Um, I have witnessed a few toxic relationships in my life. So I have seen that though the toxicity again, like how I said, people are not always strong, always very loving. So like how we have these shades, even the toxicity is not like omnipresent. So
Right.
when you and when people are in this kind of a relationship, they just tend to focus on things that are working and do not focus on the things that are not working so well. So that is one aspect that I noticed, that was like a takeaway for me when I looked at all these couples. So these are people who are friends and colleagues, relatives. So they actually they just brush it aside and think, okay, this is not happening. This is in my compartment. So when this toxicity affects my life, if it becomes too much, I will walk away. But till now, it is working. So today it is okay. Tomorrow I will see what happens. So that kind
Right.
of thing is very real. That is how people, they just don't want to rock the boat. So Koena
Huh.
is also like that. So it is like, today he's okay, today he shouted at me, fine, let me see what he does tomorrow. So this is
Right.
a very real thing that people do. Not everybody has the I wouldn't say confidence or courage, I would just say they don't want to walk away. So many
Right.
people ask me, why did Koena not walk away, why did she just stay on with him, and why is it that she decided whatever she decided? But that
Right.
is how she is. She doesn't want that to end. So that is the flaw, that is how she is. Her character is like that. So she
Right.
is flawed, she is strong, yet she's not strong.
Right, right. This is so true, Nitya, because even I have seen, these kind of toxic relationships, and this question that readers have come back to you about, that why did she not walk away? It is very easy for us to kind of judge the person for not walking away, but it is not always possible for that person to walk away. There might be a number of reasons, and I have witnessed it, like you said, that it's not very easy, and we tend to brush it under the carpet ki theek hai, let's take it day by day, and that kind of a relationship. So yes, and that has come out so well because it is a toxic relationship, and you kind of showed how how the abuse that Koina has faced in her childhood has shaped her into the adult that she is right now, and how she cannot take those decisions, or she tends to be more impulsive than or compulsive than other people. That is so true. That is so true.
And another point is the kind of support system that she lacks. She doesn't have parents or any kind of relatives to fall back on. Not that anybody who's educated and she's standing on her legs, she doesn't need that kind of a support. But somewhere, when you are part of a society, you actually like to have some kind of a support system, or you look forward to having friends around you, or even parents or some relations around you, so that you can talk to them or just have a shoulder to cry on. Since
Right.
all this is lacking, so there is this thing that, okay, if I leave him, where will I go? Not that she
Huh.
doesn't have a place to go, she can always rent a place. So that is how my readers reacted, saying that you are giving the example of a woman. This is not the kind of message that women of this time, current times, should be getting. I'm like,
Right.
yeah, correct, but
Huh.
this is also real. Women like this exist.
Right. Right.
Not all women are very strong and want to walk out of marriages that are toxic.
Right, right, right. Yeah, that is true because we see it as, like she has agency. She has the privilege of a good financial situation on her side. She has a good job. So, yeah, we look at it like, why doesn't she walk away? She has everything. And the only people
Yes.
that we assume, stay in those kind of relationships are like they don't have any privilege and they don't
Yes.
have any agency, which is not true. Even people with agency and privilege tend to stay in these kind of relationships because it is familiar and it is what they are used to. So yes, that is so true. Very true. Oh God, I totally now understand. Why I was getting that feeling. कि अरे go away, why are you
Yes.
not going away?
So
And Lalita,
it was very difficult for me to explain this to people. So
right.
I was like, I had made up my mind that I will talk about it very clearly today.
No, we need to talk about it because coming from my perspective, even if I have witnessed those kind of relationships, I was bothered by this fact that even after having so much agency, she's not going away. Why is she not going away? She has that agency. But yes, as you pointed out, people tend to stay in these kind of relationships because that's what they all know. And
Yes,
Lalita is saying that she knows what it is to be without anyone, and she would never want to go
and she
back to
would,
that again.
yes, correct, correct,
Absolutely.
correct.
Absolutely. And yeah, Lalita. So Lalita has just recently finished reading your book, and she's echoing your sentiments. That she
Yeah.
has of a perfect life that gives her safety, and it is not easy to walk away. True. Very
Absolutely.
true.
Yeah.
Very true. It is a pattern seen with the victims of emotional abuse. They end up justifying the abuser's actions. Yes, it is a kind
Yes,
of conditioning.
correct.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yes. Okay, that has been really heavy, and now we are moving on to another heavy subject of the Naxalite movement. So, there was this very interesting line that you have used in the book where you say that, they could be good, Naxalites could be good, and they could be bad to the villagers, or probably they were just like Robin Hood. So I want to know more about this portrayal, about your thoughts on this portrayal. Do you think that they are like Robin Hood, and we have just maligned their image in the media, or tell us about your opinion about the movement? Yeah,
So this might come across as very shocking, but so back in the coal mines where we used to stay, so our settlement was like really secluded. So wherever all these managers and staff who work in the coal mines, they stay, it's like a colony, but it is like miles and miles away from any kind of inhabitation. So
right,
you don't have any stores or shops, nothing. You just have forests and forests, and then there is a suddenly you have one colony of people. So and then behind these officers' settlements, there would be villages where all these laborers would also stay. So
right,
many of them were part of the Naxalite movement, or they were sympathizers. So these people would be making crude bombs, handmade bombs at night and experimenting with so many other things. And there were also times, it was during those times, 70s and 80s, when there was a lot of Naxalite movement in those areas in the east. So
right,
we would actually witness people. Actually, they would host these Naxalites at their homes, and they would keep them for they would stay there for days and weeks, and they would not actually talk about them because these people, they would pay these laborers, these people, a lot of money, and they would help them, be it teaching the kids, or helping them financially, medically, or any kind of help. They would be really helpful to these laborers and other people. So
right.
it was like a card they were using, maybe they were genuinely helping, I'm not sure, but the thing is, the
Hmm.
safety way for them was like really huge. So they were these guys, these people, they never complained about them, or they would never say that yes, we know they are there. They would never talk about it. So whenever the police came knocking, they would just say, no, I don't know anything about it, I have never heard all this.
Ha, ha,
And
ha.
these sympathizers, they would go into hiding. So there were times when my father would come home and say, Are, my supervisor hasn't come. So he's gone missing, and he'll probably surface again after a week or so, because the police have been searching for him. So I
Oh,
was young at that time, so I wouldn't understand. But later on, when I'm talking to my father and other people, so we understand that okay, so they were all sympathizers or part of the movement. So they
Right.
would go into hiding whenever somebody was trying to search for them. And we
Right.
would also see these wanted wala posters, 10,000
Ha,
rupees and all that. So
ha,
all
ha.
these, now when you look at it, when I'm staying in Chennai, I'm thinking back and recollecting all this. It is like a movie, when you say watch Sholay or something, you see a
Right.
reward wala poster. So when you actually see it, it is like, oh, I have seen all this. So at that time, it was not very exciting. It was part of my normal life.
Right. Right.
That is how it was, and it has stayed in my mind. So,
Right.
in my opinion, it is just their life, and they started off fighting a fair war, but then it
Hmm.
became politicized and marginalized. I mean, it has taken another color.
Yeah, that's
So,
true. Yeah.
like
That
any
is
war that starts out with a fair purpose, it has
right.
taken another. I don't know. I don't want to
Yeah,
say other
I
things.
know.
That is how it
No,
has
no, no,
become.
definitely. Because, when politics is involved, then, something becomes something else, and then the media does their own kind of
Yes,
trial. So it just kind of morphs into something that it probably wasn't when it started.
correct.
That is true. And, I'm really, really like thinking about all of those times where you have witnessed all of these things and, all those wanted posters. Oh my God, that must have been like right now when you think about all of those things, it must give you a different kind of understanding of the kind of life that you have lived over there, and you probably never even understood what was happening
Yes,
at that point.
correct.
Oh my God, oh my God, that is
And
amazing.
when we used to speak to them, they would come home. So they were all very nice people, very very sweet people and normal people. They would talk about their stomach ache or their children not scoring marks and regular matters they would discuss. So
Right,
it is like you and me. You would talk about the weather, so many other things, but they are also part of something else that is bigger and scarier or dangerous, but this is
right,
also
right.
part of their life, where they are worried where the next meal will come from, or what will happen to my daughter after she passes 12th, or some mundane matters like that.
Right, right, right. And this is, something that comes across very well in your book, where you have shown, the kind of situations that they are in simultaneously, where they are looking after their families and simultaneously other things are happening. And you are leaving it open to the reader to form their own opinions. Oh my God, I am so sorry. I am
Oh,
so
hello.
sorry. I'm so sorry. That was an unexpected turn of events. So yes, that comes out really, really well in the story, that you're all leaving it open to the reader to understand and to kind of reflect on it. Is what you see in the media, is what you hear and from the politicians, is that right? Have you thought about it? Because it made me question, have I even bothered to kind of go and search about why it started and why it is happening, how it is happening. I haven't, honestly speaking. And your book kind of made me think about all of those things. And I think that is the best thing that a book can do to people who have not experienced, like you have experienced all of these things. uh, it's really amazing. It's amazing. So now I
Thank
want to
you.
ask you, that you've talked about all of these things. Are any of the incidents that the book has, are any of them inspired by like real true events, or is it just all kind of bits and pieces of true events that you don't want? If you don't want to confirm, that is also okay.
No, no, it's all right. So there are two incidents that are true. So one is the abuse of child. That is true, and that is something that was pretty close to me. So I know for a fact that it happened.
Oh my
And
God.
the second one is the abuse of the women laborers. That is also something that I have witnessed. I mean, second account, of course, but that is something that I know that has happened, and the child born out of such an instance. So that is
Right,
something
right,
that I know has happened.
right, right. That must have been painful to write about, like, even as a writer, even as a third party, when you're writing it, it is very difficult to detach yourself from these painful, stories and experiences. How
Absolutely.
would you say, as a writer, how would you say that, if there are new writers watching us right now, how would you say that, if we want to write a story like this, how do we detach ourselves and become objective, more objective about our characters?
Um, Actually, two opinions. Actually, I don't think you can detach yourself 100% because it is very difficult to. Um, uh, Actually, if you untangle all these emotional feelers, then you can't write. The
Right.
writing won't be very natural or true. That feeling wouldn't come through. And then if you are too involved, even then you just get inside the emotion and you cannot write. So it is
Right.
like a situation that you're caught in. But what I would suggest is you just need to think about it and sit with it and not let it affect your psyche. So you probably have to take some days to let it settle down. So that will help you come above it. So when you rise above it, you are able to see it, say, from a 10,000 feet view, or you just look down and say, okay, this is how it has happened, and I'm not too involved in it right now. I can write about it now.
Hmm.
Like,
Right. Okay. Yes, yes. I think that will help, because even I have, suffered from that, that you when you write from personal experiences or experiences of people who are close to you, you kind of lose that objectivity that you need as a writer. So yes, and completely detaching is also not possible. It's not possible. All right. So we have a. I'm so sorry.
another visitor here. Okay.
He's not leaving. Okay, Lalita has a interesting question. When you were researching this story, one option could have been to focus on the Kamin herself. How did you get the idea or inspiration to spin this intricate tale about the Kamin's daughter and bring these layers to the story and make it more than the coal mines? Oh, that's a very interesting question, Lalita.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lilita. So, yes, it's a very interesting question. To answer this, actually, when I was writing the first draft, it was more about the Carmen, like how she is pointing it out. But then, and the Carmen's daughter was like an afterthought. So this is something that
Right,
had happened. So and then while editing it multiple times, I also restructured the plot so that it was more tighter, and so I wanted to focus on one or two themes. So while doing the editing, I understood that I was going in multiple directions, so I could not confuse my reader. So I
right.
chose to retain only two themes and stick to them. So that is why I focused on the Carmen's daughter rather than on the Carmen. And so that is the spin. That is why it is written in that way.
Right, right,
Because
right, right,
I wanted to focus on these two themes, primary themes of abuse and Naxalism, and how it affects all these characters.
right, right. Yes, yes, that makes sense, because only after you focus on the Carmen's daughter do you get both sides of those two themes, and you can understand like how this one person is affected on both fronts and how they shape up to be the person that they are.
Yes.
Absolutely, yes, 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 yes. I would have loved to read about the Carmen herself, though. Are you planning like a sequel or a prequel? Please, please say yes.
Not really, but yeah, I could do that. That's a good idea, actually.
So Natasha also
Didn't
is
think of
asking,
it.
like, do you have an idea about writing a sequel?
I'll have to think about it. Good
Yeah,
idea.
please do a sequel or a prequel. I would love to know more about, Koina. Sorry, I will not reveal spoilers. I would love to read more about the Carmen herself, and what and how she went through her life. I would
Right.
love to read that. So plan a prequel,
Sure.
okay? All right. Okay. So now that we have talked about a lot of heavy subjects, I just want to, do a little shift and talk about the kind of challenges that you faced while you were writing this book. Like you have already said that there was a long time between writing and publishing. But what were the kind of challenges that you faced during writing when you were writing the manuscript?
The main challenge was time, and because I was going through a lot of personal changes also. I was getting married, and I was trying to move to another city. So those kind of things also affected what I was thinking at that time. As a newly married person, you can't
Right.
actually think or write about a very heavy, depressing stuff like this. So I
Absolutely.
would I
Your
would add
mind
in
is
all
not,
these,
not in that
yeah,
space.
I would
Yes.
add in all these happy moments, and then I would think, no, it is not going with the theme. So I have to wait till I'm very bad. I'm in a bad mood, or I'm depressed, so that I can write. The narrative flows well. So
All right.
those kind of things would happen, but mainly time was a challenge, and the flow was not coming very naturally, because I would have left some thread somewhere, and it helped to write it down manually on a notepad, and then port it to just type it out into the computer. So
Right, right, right. All right. And what is the most rewarding aspect of having written and published this book? What do you feel that, is the best reward of having written this book?
so um, Actually, I wanted to talk about two aspects, that is abuse and what happens, to people who are not so well off, and what kind of lives they lead. So these two things, when readers they read it and they understood what I was trying to say, even if they were a handful, it was so pleasing. It was so thrilling to me. I kept talking about it to everybody. Okay, I was like,
Right.
"They understood it. They understood it. I am so happy." So that is the most rewarding thing that has happened to me when I wrote this book. I was very happy that okay, this person understood it. I am really thrilled.
Right, right, right. I think that is for an author, that is kind of the best thing that when readers come up to you and they tell you that okay, I kind of related to that, and this is the aspect that you have done fabulously well. So I'm sure that would have been like really rewarding. Yeah.
Yes.
And you have done so well in exploring the subject of abuse and how it affects the psyche of a person. You've done that excellently, like excellently. Although it was not very easy to read, but that was like
Yes.
very
Thank
very
you.
well executed. Yeah. One of the things that I actually wanted more of in the book was there were events that happened around the coal mining village and around the mines. I wanted more of those. Why did you
Yes.
not have more of those?
I understand. Correct. I know. I know.
That opening scene took my breath away. It was so fantastically written, I am telling you. That opening scene, and when the event happens, like the major event happens, and this reporter is coming and they are bothering the woman who is sitting over the dead body of her husband, and they are clicking pictures. That scene, it just blew my mind away, and I wanted so many more of those scenes.
Okay. Right.
So
Actually,
I'm really
that sadly got chopped off in the editing table. We wanted to keep the narrative to the story, the main theme. So we
right,
chopped
right.
off all those some
Huh.
portions of it where we were actually talking about more such stuff.
Right, right, right. That's why I feel that a prequel is something that we need, because then we'll have all of that and we'll have more of Kamin, so readers will be like very very satisfied with that.
Sure, I'll do that. Thank you.
Okay, there was one line, in the very beginning. I think there was one line in the book which kind of hit me very, very hard, and just kind of sets the pace for the book, where you're talking about the coal miners, and I think it is in the first chapter where you have said that most often they just coexisted with darkness, both inside
Yes.
and outside. And that line is something that just kind of sums up the whole book for me, because it kind of shows what those laborers go through and what kind of life they are living, without privilege, without any kind of even fundamental rights. That was beautiful. I'm so glad that that did not get cut out. Okay, we have some comments over here. Okay, Lalita is asking, you also explore the bonding between Tim and Koina. He's a mentor figure in her life, and it is refreshing to see him being supportive. Yes, yes, that is true. That is true. Yeah.
Actually, we always portray male bosses as being predators, or somebody who's out to take a chance or something like that. But
Right,
there are also people who are very nice, men who are quite sure of themselves. They don't need to hit on you. So why
right.
not even
It was very refreshing because he was open to new ideas, and he was genuinely interested in Koina covering all of these newses, and he had no angle of his own other than getting good news and put out a good paper. That's it, and it was very refreshing. Every time we come across a male character, we expect them to be negative, and
yeah.
it's really good to see some positive male characters. Okay, even how Koina mentored Sagar. Yeah, Koina mentored Sagar really well. Yes, yes. All right,
Yes.
Nithya. Like we already discussed, you definitely need to write a prequel. That was one of my questions, that, are you planning a sequel or a prequel? So we have decided that you need to write a prequel. Other than that, what can your readers expect from you in the coming months and coming years? Are you working on a new project right now?
Yes, I am. So I'm working on the story of a queen who lived in the 1700s, and she fought the British. So this is something that happened in my native place, in Tamil Nadu. So this is
Right,
something that I'm researching on and writing on. Uh, yeah, still in the works.
right,
Nothing.
right, right, right. So
Yeah.
is it another, like, inspired by true events fiction?
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Oh, that is so great. I would be looking forward to it. Very,
Monica.
very. That's very interesting. All right. Lalita is saying the cover of the book is so lovely. Once you read the book, you will understand and the importance behind the colors and layout. Exactly.
Yes,
That is true.
absolutely. Yes,
That is
correct.
true. The
Thank you
cover
so
is
much.
fabulous.
Thank you. That is totally all credits go to Suhail Mathur of the Book Bakers. So he's the one who designed it. So,
Right, right.
and of course, the red is my favorite color. So
Then obviously, it's a good chance that it kind of also signifies the themes of the book, and it is your favorite color, so
yes,
there's a double win for you. All right, Nithya, we are going to wrap up our session now. I did not realize, we've been talking for almost 1 hour now,
I know.
and and
Yeah.
and there are so many aspects to this book. I just want to tell our viewers as well that there are so many aspects that you might not be aware of before you picked up this book. And like we discussed, it has a lot of themes. Some are very very heavy themes. Obviously, it is not very easy to read, but it is something that will kind of open your eyes and direct you to kind of find out things for yourself and question your ideology. So I think this is something that we should all read. And if you have read it, please put out a review for Nithya's book on Amazon, on Goodreads, anywhere that you put out reviews. It really helps the author. And now, before we wrap up, I want to ask you, Nithya, do you have any kind of tips for our writers out there? Please give us at least three tips so that, based on your experience as a writer and of writing, let's say, based on true events kind of stories, what are the three most important tips that you would give to our writers?
Um, One is get your facts right. So research very
Yeah.
well. Get all your
Yeah.
facts really right. And number two, read a lot so that you can write well. And third is write whenever you can, even if it is 10 minutes. Do write.
Right, right. Absolutely, absolutely. Do you have like a very disciplined schedule for writing, Nitya? Do you write every
Um,
single day?
Not really. So I am a new mother, and
Oh,
nowadays I don't get time to write much. So I'm trying to balance my new parenthood and my job. So the writing
right,
is paused for now. But
right,
normally I try to write at least for 45 minutes to half an hour daily.
right. Yeah. Yeah, I think daily writing is something that we are all struggling with, with all of the other things that we need to do. But it is something that definitely comes in handy if we can, inculcate that kind of a practice of writing at least something every day. It can be any number of words, but write something every day. And that's how you kind of build up your novel or your book.
Yeah, and it helps keep the flow up. You don't forget things or ideas, new ideas.
Absolutely. Natasha is saying research because nothing can sink a good book faster than no research. Absolutely. That is so
Yes.
true.
So true.
Oh, Lalita is saying one day Nithya's daughter will read the Kamin's daughter. How cool is that? That is amazing. Actually amazing.
Yes.
All right, viewers, thank you for joining us
Thank
today
you.
and thank you for listening to us talk about Nithya's new book, The Carmen's Daughter. Please pick it up, please read it, and let her know what you think about her book. Leave her a review. Nithya, thank you so much for coming to Penmancy and discussing your book with us. I am so, so happy that I got this chance to interact with you and learn about all of these characters and their backstories from you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you so much for having me here. It was great fun talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, viewers. You have been amazing. Lalita, Natasha, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Bye.
Lilita, Tasha. Thank you, everybody. Bye.